What is going on, YouTube? Boy, oh boy, do I have a special, spicy tax video for y'all today. If you've been paying attention to the news or following social media and things like that, you've probably seen that your boy 50 Cent, the rapper, has been taking some heat, and I mean some serious heat, about a tweet he posted saying, hey, I don't care if I hate Trump or not, I'm not about to pay these high taxes under Joe Biden's plan. Of course, after 50 posted that tweet, the internet, of course, lost its mind. As we move through this video, I'm going to be showing you some video footage and some of the tweets that have been directed towards 50 Cent, his philosophy on taxes, and so on and so forth. So get ready, buckle down. Some of this stuff is really ugly, but I really want to share these messages with you. I'm not here today to talk to you about politics. I could care less about who he's going to vote for. But what I do care is about spreading the truth and untangling the confusion around tax law and the things that are being said around taxes. If you're checking out our channel for the first time, my name is Mike the CPA. Here on Money and Life TV, we cover videos on finances, investing, and taxes. So welcome if you're brand new here. Now, please don't misunderstand me for this video. Now, I'm not here to promote one president over the other. I could care less who you vote for. That's your frickin' business. You deal with that. I don't care. But what I am here today is to talk to you about taxes. Now, of course, when you're voting for a president, that's not the only thing you should consider. It's absolutely not. But that's not to say that taxes aren't important, and you should definitely think about how these taxes will impact you one way or the other. It's going to totally affect how much disposable income you have at the end of the day. So keep these things in mind. As a real life CPA, you can probably imagine how much it infuriates me when people spread misinformation and lies around taxes. And when you take someone like 50 Cent, who has over 12 million with an M followers, you can imagine how many thousands upon thousands of replies to his tweet he gets. It's a lot. And not only that, but the retweet on top of that, who knows how many other comments are posted on those tweets. And so misinformation, whether it's intentional or not intentional, spreads like wildfire over social media. Now here's a tweet that pissed off so many people. 50 comes out and he says, "What the F? Vote for Trump. I'm out. F New York. The Knicks never win anyway. I don't care. Trump doesn't like black people." 62%. Are you out of your effing mind? From the post above, you can see that this was presented on a news station, and it references the tax foundation for the Biden campaign. Now, what this is really saying, that under Joe Biden's tax plan, for a person who's in the situation like 50 Cent, who makes a lot of money, if he lives in New York with combined federal and state income taxes, 62 cents out of every dollar he makes goes to the government. And to put that into perspective, now this man makes millions of dollars a year, right? At least I would expect him to. This would mean that of every $1 million 50 Cent makes, he only keeps 380,000 of that. Think about that for a second. This is why he feels so angry, is he does not want to give 2/3 of what he makes to the government. He feels like a tax slave, a literal tax slave. Now I want you to ask yourself, honestly, do you know anyone, regardless if they're rich, regardless if they're poor, do you know anyone in your life who would willingly and openly give 2/3 of their income to the government? Now let's look at some video footage, some tweets, some reactions to what 50 said here, and some of them are going to be from left-leaning people who are left-leaning politically, and others from people who lean more towards the right side of politics, and see what they have to say.
Oh, I know I'm about 3 hours late. That 50 Cent basically just posted on his Instagram and Twitter a couple of hours ago that he's voting for Trump, and the reasons why. Quick little screenshot he put of the tax rates that are going up in various states and what it would look like under Joe Biden, rather, which is something like 60% in New York, 62% in California. I mean, these numbers are insane. You've never seen them. But I really quickly want to just say something to defend 50 Cent, because I am just seeing so much ignorance in his comments from majority of black people saying they're done with him and it's because he's rich and he's betrayed them. No, it's because he's smart and you're not.
So right away, we have Candace Owens, who's definitely more right-leaning, coming out and basically saying you would have to be stupid to want to pay 62% of your income in taxes to the government willingly. Then you have other people on the other side of the spectrum, and this gentleman saying 50 Cent can go F himself for choosing his personal wealth over the health of the nation. He says, what a selfish piece of you-know-what. In just these two examples, we just went from, hey, you're smart for wanting to save money on taxes, to you're a selfish piece of poo-poo for wanting to hoard your wealth and not give it away to others. Isn't the internet such a magical place? Now let's roll a few more clips, look at a few more tweets, and this is where I'm going to come in and start to clear up the confusion around some of the misinformation I'm seeing being posted.
Ex-boyfriend, and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie.
Yeah, and Chelsea Handler said that was a lie, that that's not a Biden tax plan. Oh, yes, it is. His tax plan is going to be the 5th highest ever. Not the highest ever. That sounds pretty damn high to me.
Let's keep going on with the tweets here. Okay, so as you can see, the woman up top basically doesn't give 2 cents, about 50 cents. But more importantly, I want to direct your attention to the second tweet here we're seeing in this thread. It says, only those making well over $400,000 a year will see an increase in taxes. Let's look at another tweet. The gentleman up top, he says something very similar. He says, Joe Biden has pledged to only impose higher taxes on those earning more than $400,000 a year. It's only about 1.5% of the U.S. population. 50 cents is not worth a cent now, it seems.
If you actually believe that Joe Biden is only going to raise taxes for people that are making more than $400,000, because what it shows is that you have to be extremely ignorant about economics, okay? Just extremely ignorant about economics.
Now, I'm only going to read just a part of this tweet, but you can pause the video if you want to read the full thing. But this lady's saying that New York raised taxes on the rich, and the rich are leaving in droves. When tax revenue plummets, they will start taxing the poor to keep up. Wake up. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's some opinions from the left, some opinions on the right about these different tax matters, about 50 cents, and so on and so forth. But you can imagine that this was somewhat fun for me to pull this information together. It also just touches the surface of how deep of a contrast people have in regards to their belief around income taxes and what people should pay or what they should not pay. Now let's start to break down some of these tax matters that we've just seen and break down what's true and what's not so true. As with most things with taxes, in my experience, there usually is no yes or no answer. Their answer is much more complicated than that, and let me explain. Well, the first thing I think we should do, I propose, is that we look at how we arrive at the 62% 50 was talking about in the first place. Let's see if we can reconstruct that. I couldn't find any exact calculations provided, but this is what I believe makes up their 62% number. The highest federal tax rate under Biden's tax plan would be 39.6%. Add the highest max New York State income tax rate of 8.82% plus the 12.4% payroll tax for wages over $400,000 a year plus an additional 9% Medicare tax would put you at 61.72%. Now that is my best guesstimate of how they arrived at the 62% within less than 1% difference. So I could be wrong, but as far as I can tell, that is probably how they're putting these numbers together. Unless there's some local tax that is unique to New York that I wouldn't know about because I live in California, which it could be a possibility. But give or take, these are the numbers I believe they're adding up to arrive at that 62%. The next thing I wanted to confirm is, does 50 Cent indeed live in New York City? And from what I could find in Google, he does. The next thing I tasked myself with is how much money does 50 Cent actually make in a given year? From what I found from a website that tracks how much money celebrities make, and I don't know if this is accurate, I have no idea. If you know the real number, please share it with all of us. We would be very grateful for your knowledge. That this, I believe, was an income figure for 2018, where in 2018, 50 Cent reportedly made around $3.37 million. Now, did he make the same in 19 and 20? Who knows? But roughly, let's just assume he's still making around $3 million a year. Now, do we know the composition of 50 Cent's income? No, we do not. At least I don't. If you know it, great. Please share it. But I assume he makes a significant amount of money from music royalties. Does he pay himself a salary? Perhaps. I don't know how many different companies he owns and operates. Does he sell merchandise and clothing? Perhaps. I don't know. You guys probably know him better than I do, but all I want to do is weigh in on the tax implications. Now, the reason income composition is important because based on what type of income you generate may determine what type of tax rate you pay on that income. And based on my understanding of the Biden tax plan, for people who have wages above $400,000 a year, they will be subject to a total payroll tax of 12.4%. So what I gather from that is that if 50 Cent has wages, then he could potentially be paying around 62% of his income on his wages. But what about the other forms of his income? What if he has investment income? What if he has royalty income? How about that? Will he be subject to 62% tax on every single thing he does? The answer to that is no. And our tax system, the way it's designed, is it's progressive. So the more income you make, the more tax you pay. It works as a ladder, or they refer to it commonly as tax brackets. So your first certain amount of income is taxed at 10%, then it goes to 12%, then to 22%, and so on and so forth under the current tax laws. Now, under Biden's tax plan, once an individual begins to make above $400,000 a year, they will begin to pay tax on any income above that from a federal tax perspective of 39.6%. Now, he lives in New York, right? So I've looked at the New York tax tables, and you can see their tax bracket structure is much different. So you would have to make significantly more money before you hit that highest tax bracket in New York of 8.82%. Now, you might say, well, Mike, I've heard 50 Cent makes a lot of money from investments. What if he's making a lot of money in long-term capital gains or qualified dividends? Aren't those items taxed at much lower rates? I heard the rate was around 20%. Well, under the current tax laws under the Trump administration, the highest capital gain rate right now is around 20% if you make a significant amount of money. Now, under Biden's plan, once a person begins to make over $1 million a year, which we're assuming 50 Cent will do, then his long-term capital gains and his qualified dividends will be taxed at ordinary income rates. So he will not get lower tax rates on that income, or at least only a portion of it will be taxed at lower rates. I wanted to elaborate on this because I highly doubt the news station or whomever presented that information in the first place would break it down to explain this to the average viewer. They don't. They know the average viewer doesn't understand taxes here in America. But they would have you believe that 50 Cent or the rich will basically, who live in New York, will pay 62% of every dollar they earn in taxes, combined federal and state. Well, that's not necessarily true. Now, is 50 Cent still going to pay a lot in taxes? Yeah, absolutely. The irony is that the guy goes by the name 50 Cent, or the alias 50 Cent, right? Well, under my calculations, he would on average pay around 50 cents in taxes on every dollar he earns. So the two and two go hand in hand. Pretty ironic if you ask me. Now, will he pay more under Biden's plan than he is currently paying in taxes under Trump's? Yes, absolutely. There is not a shadow of a doubt in my mind that he won't pay more, because he will. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. The next issue I think we got to tackle here, based on the tweets and video footage we were seeing, is the whole $400,000 thing. Is it true that only people who make above that amount will pay more in tax under Biden's plan? Is that true, or is it false? I can tell you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, that more likely than not, that almost every single person, regardless if they're rich or poor, will pay more tax under Biden's plan. Now, how do I know that? Because Biden has said he plans to cut back or reverse the tax cuts that were administered under the Trump administration, known as the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. He says it right here.
We have the greatest income inequity in the history of the United States of America since 1902. And the fact of the matter is, there is plenty of money to go around. The first thing I would do as president was eliminate the president's tax cuts.
So there you have it right there, folks. The first thing he would do is remove the president's tax cuts. Now, a few weeks back, I actually did make a video that compares the current tax law, which is what Trump has right now, is the current law, right? and I compared that against the law, the tax plan that Biden's proposing. Well, very early on in that video, you're going to see the different tax rates under each president, and you can clearly see that under Biden's plan, if he reverses the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the average rate of tax each American pays for every dollar they earn will increase by roughly 3%. It's right in the video. You're going to see it for yourself. Now, of course, you would have to take in all of Biden's tax plan into consideration before you can really determine and calculate what the tax increase or decrease would be. But just from a tax rate perspective, he would be increasing those tax rates on everyone, not just people making $400,000. Don't be fooled by that. That is either a lie if you're hearing that, or people just don't understand. Now, on a side note, I actually am working on putting a video together for you guys to show you my tax history for the last 7 years and how my taxes, my effective tax rate has changed under Trump's tax laws. So stay tuned for that. I'll be coming out with that. As I start to wrap up this video, there's a couple things I do want to touch on and I think are important. I do believe that if you drive the rich out of the state because of high tax laws, whether it's high state income taxes or whatever, then ultimately the middle class and poor will be stuck left paying the bills some way or another, or they'll have even less disposable income. So I do think a trickle down effect in taxes is a real freaking thing. The other thing that is really concerning to me when it comes to social media and it comes to tax topics is you can quickly see from the number of comments, retweets, and things like that, things people post, which there absolutely is their right to do so. They can post their opinions, that's fine. But you can see how much misinformation is actually out there. And do you think that when you see these opinions by whomever, whether these people are on the left, on the right, in the middle, whatever, do you feel that people actually stop and think critically as to whether or not that person knows what they're talking about with taxes, as to whether or not that person's actually in the profession of preparing taxes? My guess is probably not. Most of these people, they're just sharing their opinions, they're sharing their outrage, their emotions, whatever, but unfortunately they're spreading misinformation. It also could be intentional lies. I have no idea, to be honest, but the fact is misinformation is out there. So I would encourage you, whenever you see somebody, whomever it is, posting about taxes or finances or whatever, make sure they're qualified to actually give a legitimate opinion, because most of the time they're not. Like, for example, you wouldn't take financial advice from somebody who's broke, right? So why would you take tax advice or tax information from somebody who's not even in the profession at all and who's just sharing their opinions on Twitter or whatever platform they're on? I don't think it's wise. But, of course, people don't understand this stuff because school doesn't teach it. I went to school, I got an accounting degree, eventually, became a CPA and things like that. But in school, even college, you learn hardly anything about taxes. Even if you take a tax class, the amount of education you get is so minimal, it's almost useless. So please take it with great caution when the media is trying to tell you something about taxes, or when somebody posts something about taxes. If they're not a professional, they probably don't know what they're talking about. In this last clip I'm about to show you real quick, I do agree what Candace Owens has to say about our school system and teaching taxes. So it's a little harsh to listen to, but please hear her out and just hear what she's saying.
This is what happens. This lack of understanding is what happens when a school system gets washed of actual education. So instead of learning about taxes and about tax revenue and tax rates and how it works, you guys are learning about Black Lives Matter and white privilege and why you should be sad because you're black and how it hurts and here's your safe space. None of you are learning anything. You have no idea what you're talking about. You are really just give yourselves an old school no fives, okay?
Ouch, harsh to hear, right? But hey, at this point, I'm going to wrap up the video, and I would really love to hear from you guys now. What are your thoughts on 50 cents, about this whole thing? What are your thoughts on the taxes, the Biden's tax plan versus Trump's tax plan, all that stuff? Leave it in the comments. I'm looking forward to reading what you have to say. You guys know what you can do to support the channel. Leave a like, subscribe for upcoming weekly videos. I'll have a lot more coming out around finances, investing, and taxes. Share this with a friend. This was a lot of fun to make. Much different than a lot of my usual content, but nonetheless, I thought it could be fun and educational at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys have a wonderful week. Live life uncaged. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.